What is non-duality or Advaita Vedanta? What is the true meaning of it? That is what we will uncover today. And to do this, let's begin with the Shanti mantra of Ishopanishad, and it goes like this: Om Purnamadha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Avashishyate. And this statement is beyond traditional logic, so we will have to go very deep here. And this is the translation of this verse. That is an absolute infinite, which is Purnamada. Purnamidam means this is an absolute infinite, and from that absolute infinite has come this absolute infinite. And if we take away this absolute infinite from that absolute infinite, what remains is still the absolute infinite. This infinite, limitless reality is what the Upanishad calls Purnam. Purnam means fullness or completeness or limitlessness or infinitude. If we understand that, we understand what non-duality actually is. So let's begin the quest. The fundamental premise of Advaita Vedanta is that there is just one reality, which is reality itself, and that is the absolute truth. It is one. There is no duality, there is no separation, there is no any kind of division in that one whole reality. But then this is not how we typically perceive reality. We see separation, we see duality, we say this is me, that is someone else, that is different, this is different, and this is how the mind and the ego tries to conceive reality and experience reality. Now, this dualistic reality is what Advaita Vedanta rejects. It says the duality that we are perceiving right now is just an illusion, it is Maya, and it is just an assumption that we have not questioned deeply yet. So, duality and separation, and even our own existence as this body and mind, right? Most of us think that we are this body and mind. Vedanta says this is just an assumption that you have not questioned deeply yet, that you have not inquired into yet. And so it welcomes us into this inquiry. It welcomes us to question our assumptions on what reality is not, who we are in our essence and who we are not. That's what the Vedantic journey is about, and that's what this video is going to be about. So let's go through that inquiry. We assume that we are the body and mind, and we are this limited identity. Now, because our society, our parents, and every form of institution reinforces that duality or identity, it becomes more and more real for us. We never even question who we are and what this reality is. But if we actually start that journey of self-inquiry and of inquiring into the nature of reality, the repercussions of that can be really, really profound. What we will end up with can be really, really profound, and that can change our lives and how we live our life forever. So let's try to achieve that in some way through this journey. Now let's take a look at the reality around us. If I look around me, there is this beautiful nature, this beautiful environment in which I am sitting in. There are so many colors, there are so many forms, and there are so many things all around me. And similarly, wherever you're sitting right now, wherever you're listening to this from, just take a look around you. See what is all around you and see the colors, the forms. And immediately your mind begins to make a boundary. It begins to inherently say that that is object A with these properties, with this color, this is object B with these properties, this color, and I am object C with these properties and this color, and this is me and that is something else. This is a default mode of how we perceive reality. But where is the actual boundary? Where is the actual boundary where we stop being us and something else begins. It's a boundary that we have artificially established because of the conditioning that we have gone through. It is not a boundary that inherently exists. If you have any sort of experience with meditation, this would be even more obvious to you. When we go into certain deeper states of meditation where the boundary of the body begins to slowly dissolve, we begin to experience ourselves as something more than what we generally think we are. We begin to see ourselves as more and more limitless and more boundaryless. And that is the goal. And most of us begin with the boundary of the body. So we will begin to define ourselves with the boundary that the body has, and we begin to say that I am this because this is the boundary of my body, and I am not anything else because that is not directly in my control, or I don't feel like I'm anything apart from this. Now, when we look at our experience from a superficial level, this is true, right? We inherently feel like we are the body and we are this individuality and we are this individual person, and all that is separate from us is actually separate from us. But let's try to keep that aside. Today, let's begin to understand reality from a fresh perspective, from a new perspective. Now, from the Vedantic understanding, this is how we need to look at reality. Whatever we perceive it in consciousness, through the medium of consciousness. For example, as I'm speaking here, there is a camera in front of me, and there is a tree here, and there are plants and rocks around me. Now, from one level, I can say that there is tree, there is rock, there is the camera, and then there is me. But then, if I go deeper, I can say that I'm perceiving a camera, a tree, a rock, and everything else in my consciousness, in my awareness. So we can think of the consciousness as a medium through which I am perceiving everything else. Everything is appearing to me in my consciousness, in my awareness. And at that level, as awareness and as consciousness, everything is one and everything is in me. The best way to understand this clearly is through the example of a dream. When we go to sleep, when we dream different dreams, we go through a simulated reality. We might walk in the forest, we might look at a mountain, we can look at a tree, and we can say that everything is apart from me. There is separation, there is duality, just like there is in this external waking reality. And you might interact with people, you might talk to different people, and you might go through various experiences within your dream. But once you wake up from the dream, we can say that that entire reality, that entire simulation happened within your own mind. And every aspect of that existence of that simulated reality, which is the dream reality, was within your mind, within the awareness of the mind. So there was ultimately no tree separate from you in your dream. There was no person separate from you in your dream. It was all you. It was all you, but the experience was such that it was different from you. So that is an illusion. Although there was oneness in the dream, you experienced a reality where it felt like you were separate from that reality. Now that illusion is what Vedanta calls as Maya. When Vedanta says Maya or Mithya, it doesn't mean that the reality inherently is false or it is not real. These terms are simply pointing us towards the nature of the dualistic sense of reality, which is ultimately an illusion. The dualism and the separation is just an illusion, and it is an appearance, it is an apparent separation that we experience, just like we experience an apparent separation and duality in the dream. But if we question deep enough, if we go deep enough, we will begin to see that everything is actually one here and now. There is no separation. Just like how in the dream we went through a series of experiences where we experienced separation and duality, and ultimately we woke up to say that everything happened within me. Even right now, right here, whatever reality that we are experiencing and whatever duality that we are experiencing, it is an apparent duality and it is an apparent separation. if we inquire deep enough, we will come to a realization that even here in this waking reality, everything is one and everything is me, myself, and it is that consciousness. Consciousness is a medium through which we interact with the world. The video that I'm creating for you, the video that you're watching right now, whatever is happening at any point in time, it happens in our awareness, it happens in consciousness. The body itself is an experience in consciousness, the mind itself is an experience in consciousness, and every subject object experience that we go through is a happening in consciousness. And hence, how can there be anything more fundamental than consciousness is the question that Vedanta puts forward. So Vedanta says consciousness has to be the fundamental reality because we cannot get beyond it. There is no logical way, there is no possible way for anyone to explain this reality without taking into account consciousness. Even matter itself is just an assumption. We are assuming that there is matter outside and it has certain properties and certain qualities, and if we break open that matter, there are atoms and so on. It is all an assumption based on consciousness, because consciousness comes first. Through our consciousness we perceive matter. Through our awareness we experience the materialistic world. So how can the materialistic world be more fundamental than the consciousness itself, which is the foundation for everything? That question is what will take us to non-duality. So this is the ultimate essence. So with that, let's come back to the original verse of each Upanishad, which is Purnamada Purnamidam. Here the verse is telling us that there is one infinite consciousness. When the verse says Purnamada, which is that is infinite, it is pointing towards God, or that unmanifest, or that emptiness or void, or that infinite consciousness. And then when the verse goes on to say Purnamidam, which means this is also infinite, this in the sense we as individuals, as Jivatma, or this as in the universe, or this world of duality that we see and perceive. So with this understanding, if we begin to decode that verse, we will come to a very profound realization that God, or that infinite consciousness, is truly infinite and limitless. This person that you are and this world that you are living in is also infinite and limitless. And this infinite, limitless world and this person has come from that infinite consciousness or God. And if you take away this infinite world or this person from that infinite consciousness or God, what remains is still that infinite consciousness. And that is what we must understand, that reality is truly limitless. It is infinite. Nothing can be added to it, nothing can be taken from it. It is what it is, and it is everything. Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. It is everything there is, and it is we ourselves. The goal is just to realize that we are not the body, we are not the mind, but this infinite, limitless reality.